Hello and namaste everyone. I'm Avipsa Prasai, a young BPW from Nepal, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. Before commencing, I request you to mute yourselves when the presenters are presenting. Please be informed that the webinar is being recorded, and if you have any questions to any of the speakers, you'll be able to address them in the discussion session after all our presenters finish their presentation. A very warm welcome and greetings to our guest speakers, Ms. Ayshaine Medagangoda Labe, the resident representative of UNDP, Dr. Bahadur K.C, the Joint Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development Nepal, Ms. Yamuna Ghale, the Council Member of Nepal Agriculture Research Council, Executive Members of BPW International, President of BPW Nepal, Ms. Ambica Shrestha, attendees from UNDP, the Ministry of Agriculture Nepal, ZIZ, Swiss Development Corporation, FNCSI, Nepal Maharshi Vaidik Foundation, Organic Association Nepal, Kanchenjunga Tea State and Sun Research Center, all our very own international and national members, and everyone participating and joining us today. I'm very delighted and fortunate to get this opportunity to share the same screen with the board members and executive members from different organizations. Thank you so much for joining us. BPW Nepal has been conducting various webinars on diverse topics, including the webinars related to the pandemic COVID-19 since June. Starting with the topic, discussion on COVID-19 and its effects on various fields, some of the webinars related to pandemic we've conducted are increasing violence during pandemic COVID-19, challenges and a way forward for entrepreneurs during COVID-19, new normal perspective and strategies on COVID-19, and today we are here to focus on the livelihood and the food security during and post COVID-19. The number of people battling acute hunger and suffering from malnutrition is on rise. In many places, we still lack the ability to collect reliable and timely data to truly know the magnitude and severity of the food crisis gripping the vulnerable population. And the upheaval that has been set in motion by COVID-19 pandemic, it has pushed even more families and communities into deeper distress. The UN World Food Programme has warned that the additional 130 million people could face acute food insecurity by the end of 2020, on top of 135 million people who were already acutely food insecure before the crisis. The pandemic has devastated the livelihood and food security, especially in fragile context, and alarmed by the rise of food insecurity during COVID-19 pandemic and potential rise in post-pandemic period. To highlight the issue of livelihood and food insecurity, we are virtually gathered here today, and I'd like to welcome you all once again. Without further delay, I'd like to request our first speaker, Dr. Bahadur K.C, who is the Joint Secretary of the Chief of Food Security and Food Technology Division in the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development of Government of Nepal, with bachelor's degree in agriculture from the Institute of Agriculture and Animal Science from Tribhuvan University, and master's degree in nematology and PhD degree in applied biological science from Ghent University, Belgium. He has 25 years of experience in civil service. The division looks after the food and nutrition security, climate change and biodiversity, environment, food technology, food safety issues related to agriculture and food sector of Nepal. He is also the spokesperson of the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. Sir, I request you for your insights on the topic.
Thank you, Avipsa ji, for this invitation and my background information. Dear all eminent participants of this webinar, they all participants from BPW, and I have seen some important personalities like Ayshaine from UNDP and many others participants. I request Avipsa ji to enable me to share my screen. It is disabled. taking control of this?
I think it's able, so you'll be able to share the screen.
Okay, then I'll try. Just a minute. Okay, is it okay now? Hello?
Yes, it's coming.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity, and today it is a different forum that I'm going to present this presentation, because most of the time I was with agricultural personnel discussing about those issues, and today yeah, you are a bit broad as personalities are here, and I'm happy to share my position from Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development and my own feelings during this period. Uh, how much time it is allocated for me?
You have 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll just inform you 2 minutes before 15. It's 15, so that
It's really difficult to manage all the things. Anyway, I will just talk about the impact of COVID-19 in this situation and food and nutrition security of the country. Uh, as we all know that this COVID-19, especially the lockdown period, not because of the disease itself, but the situation induced by the disease, that we have a lot of impact on agriculture in food and nutrition security sector, and I will share some of the challenges and opportunity that we have faced and we have seen in the country, and some sort of visioning for recovery of agriculture sector in food and nutrition. Recently, a survey was conducted by WFP and FAO. We were coordinating from Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. It was in the first 2 months of the lockdown period, because at that time a lot of losses of the agricultural produce were happened, and the farmers were really in difficult situation, because lockdown was so strict that even the vehicles were not moving, and even farm markets, all the wholesale and retail markets were closed, so it was difficult. So at that time, fresh vegetables, almost 30% of the vegetables were at that time, the responses was like this. We had conducted almost 4,000 responses we have covered, and the losses at that time was highest loss was found in fresh vegetables, thereafter banana, and all other things. In dairy, livestock sector, poultry was most affected, hard hit, and thereafter dairy and other meat products were affected. It is when I saw the report of WFP, they have conducted a quick survey, and it was said that the household with inadequate food consumption was almost around 20% in all the provinces. In Sudur Pasim and Karnali, it was a bit more, and rest of the provinces, it's around 20, 22, something like that, because they are not getting enough food or enough food materials to eat. And what negative impacts that we had faced at that time? Loss of agricultural produce. It was at that time in the first 3 months, and thereafter it is gradually decreased, because we got some sort of facilitation and loose down also. The supply system was totally disturbed at that time. The markets, the demand of the urban areas was largely reduced. So so input supply system was also disturbed at that time. Employment lost by laborers, they were pushed to food and nutrition insecurity. It is the very hard hit sector because some of the laborers they were in urban areas and they lost their job and they were pushed to food and nutrition security insecurity situation and also very hard to live. And uh, even some of the small entrepreneurs, it is not noticed very well in the media, but still we have noticed that many small they lost their confidence, which is very difficult to tackle because once they were getting into enterprises, they lost their confidence due to their marketing problems, the input supply, and all the things. And import of food, we have expected that some disturbance will happen for the import of food, but it was not yet received because import of food is continuously coming. It is okay in this period also because we have sufficient food imported from the country because we are not self-sufficient. Many workers lost their job that we all know, and investment in in all sector investment is being reduced because the nation itself is in sort of difficulties in financial matters. So, and also some of the export commodities are getting trouble. So, with the survey that we got from the responses from almost 4,000 people from all around Nepal, that they were losing some of the routine customers. The entrepreneurs say they lost some routine customers. Almost 30% said very highly affected in this sector. The product supply situation disrupted, and also the things that I already mentioned above, product demand was reduced. Most of the people have noticed that overstocking and wasting was also there. Transportation lock, we know all of the things in this matter. How we deal with that, and from national perspective, from agriculture ministry perspective, that we try to coordinate with provincial and local government development partner during this COVID-19 period, and mostly it is initial 3-4 months that the people should get, the farmers should get the market, the farmers should get their produce sold, and also there should be easy to get inputs, easy to sell the produce, and also they should get easy access to the technical services and all other services. That we tried with the coordination with other development partners, our government, non-government organizations. Even some of the mobile vans were used, some of the agri-ambulance were managed, and some of the agriculture produce in motion. In many of the this local government, they use agriculture produce in relief package also. Several other activities were done like cold storage support was done in some of the districts for the produce that those were not sold, and many other interest subsidy that they loan that the entrepreneurs got in the before the government has subsidized the loan, the interest, and in you especially in province 2, there is huge amount of interest paid by the province government that the farmers were using. And also we have developed some of the recovery package from development partners projects, and also some our own government projects. And in this period, one important thing in our agriculture sector is we kept the veterinary service. It was not in essential service, but now it became essential service at that time. And we experience, we use some of the ICT based approach for technology delivery, that we how we deal with COVID-19 during this period. Um, so the challenges are to recover the agriculture supply chain. It was disturbed, and really it was the issue at that time in the media also, because our products from the village, rural areas were not coming to the market, and the product from India or China, they were coming in the market. So we felt that this type of supply chain disturbance that we experience, and now we have to recover this, and this is becoming a challenge itself. And food and nutrition security is really still a question, especially in rural area, in the poor community, in the community with who lost their job, who lost their business. They are pushed into food and nutrition insecurity. So we have to provide them. It's still a challenge to the nation, and marketing challenges are still there, and the supply of inputs is still not being very normal, and is still having some problem. And though we have tried a lot in this time, but still there are some problems like the fertilizer trade, fertilizer supply, and we are trying our best to solve the to create the job to those who are returning from the foreign countries. There are a lot of programs set, from different ministry, from different development partners in this matter, and also the export promotion is another challenge to us. So some sort of opportunity that we have got in this period, that self-sufficiency has become a national agenda. Every government, every development partners who are working in the country and social organization, they have this issue is becoming a national agenda, that we have to be self-sufficient, and we have to grow ourselves. We have to work coordination in coordination to make our farmers self-sufficient. This became a national agenda, and indigenous technologies and products are getting popular in this period, which is very good for our local farmers. And a federation that it is a bit political, but still the federation, the province government and the local government, they were very active in this period, and it came into the effect that they have got their job, and they have got very good contact with the public, with the people, with the farmers. And in this period, fallow land came into cultivation. If you talk about the data in the rice cultivation itself, we got almost 50,000 hectare more cultivation, more rice planting in compared to last year rice plantation. In many areas, the fallow land has come into the cultivation, and mostly youths are coming in the agriculture with land pooling system. And many youths are coming, and they are looking some space to start their business, and most probably some of them are really interested in agriculture sector, and we have seen a lot of cases in this matter. And many private sectors, many banking sectors, they are attracted towards agriculture, because most of the time it is realized that agriculture it should be strong. Agriculture, it should be the option for the next level of the production, processing, and also trade. So this is a very good opportunity after COVID-19, and use of ICT has been getting popularity, has been the issue. How we are visioning for the recovery, that we have major three things that we have to do. One is self-sufficiency in staples and major commodities, which is very important for the nation, for the people of the country, and export promotion of some of the potential commodities, especially high-value commodities, and some import substitution, mainly on cereals and fruits that we are importing very much. So this is what we have think. This will create a food security. This will create a nutrition security. This will create a job in the agriculture sector. This will create the income. This will increase the income of the farmers, and this will really make the livelihood of the farmers better. So how we will go on this? We have set the agenda of the protected agriculture and assured saving, and in this we are going to say we are going to implement the subsidies to inputs to all. not to limited persons, and it should be flat to all in fertilizer, seed, breed, in electricity, in terms of mechanization. We have set this type of things, because if the farmers got these things, they will certainly get involved, and their life will be there. And technology should be the access of all farmers. Insurance services, access to all the crop and livestock insurance, yeah, and increased access to soft loan. We have managed a 5% interest rate in the soft loan, and the subsidized loan, rest the government will pay, and we are making the process very simple, so that the farmers will get easily the 5% interest loan. And we are trying to maintain the minimum support price of the cereals, and this year we are working for the cereals, and from the year onward, we are trying to give minimum support price to other crops also, and we are trying to make the farmers assured market. Fallow land is under cultivation. Land consolidation is the agenda for high production and bigger pockets, for bigger economies of scale of production. So how we will work on this is, municipalities are the major actors, because the agriculture is now decentralized. In federal structure, agriculture is the main function of the local government. So we are getting, we have to capacitate municipalities to deliver the agriculture services to the farmers. So we work on this direction. In agriculture sector, in municipalities, they should have enough manpower, they should have enough infrastructure, institutions like banking and all the things. Service delivery should be very simple in that time. Input supply should be there, resource centers should be there, marketing centers, and networking and linkages. This all in a package will make the municipalities more vibrant and like a living cell. They can grow. So this is the model that we are trying to work in the recovery things. Finally, this is my final slide. I think almost I cover, my time is over. And in conclusion, I would say agriculture sector is less affected compared to other sectors. Other sectors are more affected than agriculture sector. And family farming showed more resilience. If we talk about commercial farming, it is more affected, because the market and the demand was really difficult at that time. So family farming and small and medium order farmers were not much affected, and they showed more resilience. And at this time, we had the utilization of unused land from rural and also in urban areas has given positive response. And uh, loss of job, loss of business, and loss of market access made food and nutrition security situation difficult. This is not exactly the farmers itself, but other persons who lost the job, who lost their business, or the farmers who lost their market, they were more affected. They are more affected at this time in terms of nutrition and food security. And urban poor are more affected, facing food insecurity and livelihood risk, because they are not having any land to cultivate, at least to eat, and they are more affected. We are really saying that the persons in the Tudikal, they are in a queue for food at that time. You see, this is the situation. And availability in this period in general okay, because our production is not reduced, our import is not reduced. So availability in this period is generally okay, availability of food. But the access and utilization component is affected, because they lost job, they lost the income, and they are not getting access to the food items, and their utilization and nutrition security is really difficult, and the stabilization is affected. So this is just to open up the discussion in this matter, and how we are working and what is the situation just at a glance. This much that I would like to present here, and if there are some queries and questions, I welcome them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for those wonderful insights. If you have any questions to any of the speakers, we will be addressing them in the discussion session. So please, you can put it in the chat section as well. And now let's move towards our second speaker, the council member of Nepal Agricultural Research Council, Ms. Yamuna Ghale, with immense knowledge on natural resource management with specific emphasis in the land resource right, agriculture, environment, food and nutrition security, including the context of climatic change, migration, urbanization. She has been leading large-scale programs and projects, including policy analysis and strategic planning, budget evaluation, and management of human resources, engaging with different ministries and development agencies in preparing policies and programs on different issues such as food security, agriculture, natural resource management, climatic change and environment. She is an expert on fundamental right and directive principle, natural resource, economic right and revenue allocation, agriculture, and water resource. Ma'am, I'd like to request you for your words.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm delighted to be part of this discussion. I have been with the different INGOs and the donor agencies for last 29 years, and my last tenure was with Embassy of Switzerland, managing agriculture and natural resource management portfolio, and also being a gender focal person for the embassy. And before that, I was also with the different INGOs and the donor agencies. And currently, I am serving the government as a council member. But on part of it, on my part, I'm also working with the UN Women, FAO, and World Bank on a consultancy basis. And currently, I submitted my PhD thesis on food security governance. So this is also a very important area and a relevant area of my work experience to share with you. Just to make you inform that some of the slides Dr. K.C. has shared might also be overlapped with mine also, because this is the recent document we have on the document from WFP, and we recognize role of WFP in producing that data on the COVID impact. So I would like to start with the first slides.
Ma'am, please guide me through your slides.
Yeah, please. Let's go to the next slide. And the yes. Just to mention on this food security and livelihoods, because the way we have been, especially for the developing countries like Nepal, LSH, we have a very sometimes very narrow understanding of food security and livelihoods. So I just wanted to highlight that our constitution has clearly mentioned about the food security concept, especially focusing on right to food and food sovereignty. And also very importantly about the livelihoods capital, as we can see that it's related with the production resources, it's related with our infrastructures, it's related with our youth, women, returning migrants, whoever else engaged in the whole chain, and then all about financial assets, including access to finance, subsidies and everything, and then the social environment and the culture and the relation with food. This is very important for us. Just I want to give you a snapshot of what do we mean by food security and livelihoods. Then next slide, please. I just wanted to show you the food map as Dr. K.C. has already explained. This is the mapping WFP generally do. And this is also very important to see in the provincial level of food security, insecurity, and also livelihood threats that has been created by different pandemics or the crisis times. So this also shows where are we in terms of food security and livelihoods, because Nepal as one unit cannot be considered as food secure or insecure. And you can clearly see that how there are variations in terms of provinces also, so that we can also make a response according to that. Next, please. And here also, Dr. K.C. already also mentioned, what I'm trying to highlight is more from the people's perspective, who are most affected, because everybody is affected by this COVID-19, but who is most affected, that is more important for us. Because when the government make plans and policies, responses towards it, and it's very important to know who is affected in what degree and in what ways. So that's why I can show you here that who is affected most and how these are to be responded. For example, the small traders, they are affected differently than the large and medium traders. And you can also see the salaries from INGOs and government, they are least affected, but the remittance might receiving countries, because we had 56% households receiving remittance. And because of the COVID-19, many are returning back, and there is a high impact on the remittance receivable. So for example, and the most hard hit is the daily wage labor. And you can see the agriculture-based daily wage labor, as well as non-agriculture related daily wage labors are the most vulnerable in terms of food insecurity. So this is how we have to see from people's perspective who is affected most and how they are affected. So the next slide, please. And how it has impacted. This is very important to see how they are impacted and what are the sources of income. As we know, all these businesses are closed, tourism is almost halted, and the supplies, exports are almost halted. So you can see lots of income sources are being diminished, especially for women and the daily wage worker who are in unpaid kind of work or the on a regular unofficial kind of unregistered kind of work. They are the most hard hit communities receiving the incomes. They are most hard hit. You can see here. So next one. And the food source, you can see because most of the time we have this food stock and then food sources. For example, you can see that if you look at those categories who are hard hit, for them food stock wise, this is very problematic for them because they cannot make stock out of their earning and savings. And even for the food sources from the own production as well as market is also a bit disrupted because of this lockdown and the prohibitory orders we had. There were lots of restrictions. And as Dr. K.C. mentioned, food was taken as a priority goods, but in practice, there were lots of restrictions. And foods were not being able to move from one palika to another palika, one province to another province. And then these perishable goods carrying loads were obstructed by security. So there were many issues that has come into the practical level. So this is also very important to look what is happening in reality. So the food sources were also been very much affected. Next slide. Here I can show you a little bit on the gender part I would like to show, because we have almost 26% households, female headed households. And if you see who are the hard hit, and you see the female are the most hard hit category from the food security point of view, especially from the dietary perspective. And if you also look from the education perspective, and the illiterate group are most hard hit from the dietary perspective, because whatever is available through their limited resources, and they have to manage with that resources. So you can see how they are affected much than the others. So next one, and the consumption pattern, I would like to a little bit focus here is because of the unavailability of this foods easily availability in market, because of the reduction of the incomes, sources of incomes, and also those who are also supplying in the market, They were also not been able to deliver to the consumers because of the lockdown and the prohibited orders. Certain hours only open for groceries. So this is also the another reason. So if you see the overall, what is the impact is, for example, the quantities has been reduced, especially for mothers, for young children. You can imagine what would be the impact for them in a longer run. And you can also see there is a reduction in the portion of size of meal also in the family. And the number of meal eaten per day has been also drastically reduced. And the borrowing and then this support from the friends and relatives has been also another source. And the most important hard-hit part is people are purchasing less preferred and less expensive foods because they cannot afford much for quality food or this the food they would like to eat. So this is the pattern we can see from the consumer's perspective. So next one, I just wanted to show you a little bit of a province-wise situation relating with the first slide we had on this food map. Because whenever we discuss about food security, and then we cannot just discuss about the federal policies or the federal plannings. It's more about agriculture aids by constitution is localized, federalized. But in terms of the responses from the provincial level and local level, the full capacity is not there to take the whole responsibility to manage food security of the provinces. So if you look into this provincial map, there are different ranges. For example, if you see the stock, you see Bagmati, the current, the Bagmati is the province 3, where we remain as a capital of the federal country. 32% has no stock, meaning that this province is largely relying on market. For example, it's very important to see we are in a capital, but we are mostly affected because we are largely relying on the market dependency. So this is how we have to look on the provincial level of the stock management, for how long they can manage the food security or the food supplies in those provinces. This is very important to look from that perspective. So the next one. Here I would like to look a little bit on the food consumption. If stock is like that, how it is impacting on consumption. This is very important for us. Looking at the provincial level, you can see that the poor category, you see the Sudur Paschim province 7 has the highest situation of the food consumption situation is mostly poor, poorly managed. So everybody knows that how the Sudur Paschim provinces has to be focused in terms of production, in terms of agribusiness, and in terms of supply management. And this we can relate with the whole bunch of people coming all the way from India, now going back to India, is mostly from this area. And why we are not able to retain them in this area. You see, this is how we can see the overall demographic pattern, overall policy pattern, overall responsiveness pattern. It's very important for us because this is the area where it's more, the less produced, less properly managed supply chain, and then less mobilized human resources because they came with such a difficulty and now they're going back with the risk. They are saying that we are ready to die with the corona in India than to die with hunger in Nepal. So this is the most painful statement they gave when they were returning back. So this is also very important to look. This data is not only data. We have to see faces of people from that particular area, why they are saying it and why it is happening so. So behind the data, we have to see the faces. That's why I'm trying to explain it like that. Next one. And food insufficiency reasons. As we see here, I want to go again back to Sudur Paschim. We can relate, like, for example, 44% are saying no money to buy food. And this is the area you have lesser supplies, higher price, lesser income, lesser opportunities, and how they can afford for food. So this is where we have to see the when we define the food security provisions or the livelihood provisions, this is where we have to really see how these things are to be taken into consideration when we devise the policies, when we devise the programs, and then also find the employment opportunities for those youths and then the elders also who can engage in which kind of sectors. This is very important for us to look into. So next slide. Here I just wanted to show again the supplies. And again, as I said earlier, Bagmati province, largely depending on market. And that's why there are also the statements coming that when this the import from India or the other countries are coming in so well, and we get more opportunity here in Bagmati province because the demand is much more here than the other provinces, and then demand fulfillment remains a priority for Bagmati province as a capital, and then the others will be depriving out of that situation. So this is very important to see whether we have to focus on production part to enlarge that graph, or we have to focus on market management to reduce that gap, for example. So this is how we have to see how these graphs are presented and how these data are collected and what does it mean to us in terms of policy and programming. So next one. So I just wanted to bring some messages out of it in general. If you see very first outbreak of COVID-19 in Wuhan, and the data shows that 21.6% infected were the farmers and workers working in the value chain of agriculture. This gave a meaning that agriculture related workers, producers are not out of risk. This is very important for us to carry this message. The second one is especially the larger developed countries who have very well established processing industries. They also started to contract their work, and then the employment opportunities were also reduced drastically in that area. Because, for example, the pig farmers or this beef producers, they started to reduce the supply of feed to their animal because the inputs were not readily available, but the price was also gone. But on the other hand, if their animals are grown faster, they cannot supply to the market when that has to go to the market. So they wanted to slow down the process of the animal growth itself, for example. And in a longer run, what they do is that the processing industry, they started to reduce the numbers of workers, is because within the industry, they have this closed environment, and then workers were working in a very close distance. So they wanted to, workers also didn't feel good. And then even the industries were also not able to retain the staff. So they have to cut their staffing there. So, and then very important is that the income and then the food choices then became interrelated. As I said, Nepal case also, and the worldwide also, it has been largely affected because income determines what kind of food choices you can make for your family. So the other one is, I want to focus only on women basically here is, looking in the Nepal context for last 6-7 months, I think I saw Santaji also here, she can bring more experiences. From my interactions, what I find is that women entrepreneurs were having lots of problems. It's because small women entrepreneurs, they were producing in a small quantity, and they were aggregating and sending to the local markets, agricultural markets like Kalimati or Bolhu. But when there is a lockdown, these women didn't have their own vehicle to transport their products, and they had to ask the other male members for the support, and it was not possible for them. So by the time they started to retain their products with themselves and then not getting the markets. This is very, very important. Likewise, many of the male producers and the marketeers, they started to work through online supplies. But when I talked to some of the women entrepreneurs, they started to say that first is they were at home with children, with elders, and with their whole family, and their work burden has gone high, and they didn't have the time to really think of how to develop apps, and how to make consumers aware of their products, and how to really increase their consumer base, for example. That was one of the experience they were sharing a lot. The second, in most of the cases, our women entrepreneurs based on agriculture and food, they were mainly given for this pickles or dalmots or the chips, these kind of things. But there were lots of women's supplies in the supermarkets, stores that has gone out of date. And the first lot gone out of date because the groceries were not opening and then consumers were not visiting. And the second lot, they had collected all the raw materials for production, and then this also not been able to use because there were no workers and they were also not sure of the markets. So they had double loss for that. And likewise, there were some women, they had really started for floriculture business, for example. And in the COVID time, it was not possible for people to go and buy flowers than food. So they had to throw all of their flowers, dump their flowers, and whole investment has gone. And on top of it, they were asked by their family members, especially the male members, they were asking morning to evening, they were just questioning and questioning and questioning why you made investment in that sector. Now we have gone to the bankruptcy, and how do we raise it? And there are lots of psychological trauma for them because they are listening from morning to evening, they are listening their statement rather to get counseling or the support system. And there are also the women, especially on this non-agriculture sector, tourism, including the how do I say, homestay, including homestay, and then handicraft business, hotel, restaurants. Mainly women are working there, and then they have lost their job and they have lost their income. And this has created, because I'm engaging with the different meetings and then interactions, and what is happening is because of the loss of their incomes, and they have lots of household problems because the income impacted on the food supplies, and also there are lots of domestic violence because of that. And then that's why I'm saying that women were disproportionately impacted because one, because of this loss of income, they had lots of problem for the food security management at household level. They had lots of problems with among the parents, and then children were very much either beaten up or they were shouted or they were not given proper care. So they are very much under pressure. And then more than that, they are very much under domestic violence. So it has really impacted, and now some women groups have started that self-care sessions are also given to different business groups, especially for women. So this is where we are very much concerned about how to revive women-led business and a youth-led business. So on the policy, Dr. K.C. has already mentioned about it. So here also what I can say a little bit is worldwide, what we can say is that developed countries had set aside different measures to revive their agriculture, to revive their businesses. But in Nepal, it's not that way we have defined it. It's a more of a generic program we have, but there are certain programs that is responsive to COVID brought opportunities and challenges. So, but we don't have any specific programs. For example, if women has lost women entrepreneurs has lost this level of incomes out of this business, how we are going to revive them, or how we youth are coming to the agriculture, and what would be the best ways we want to retain them. We saw this, how men are going to India back from Sudar Pasim. So there is no specific measures on our side. I am a little bit critical on that. And there is also a challenge for us is because Santa is here. There are lots of issues related with the export, for example, in tea and other products. And now there are lots of issues related with the online inspections, online certifications, and online processing. Everything is online, becoming online. So here also very important for us is how men business persons and women business persons can be really targeted by the government to make them sure They are aware of these policies, they are aware of these demands and how the government can support them and how the private sector can support them. This part has to be really taken care of. And then the last one I have put is more on the producer side, because producers have been limited access to inputs. That has been impacting a lot. And you all know this fertilizer case for rice, everybody knows about it. And there are other issues also on the access to inputs. And land is another one, because currently land ministry has brought this concept of land bank. I'm sure you are also part of this discussion. We cannot just talk about agriculture without talking land, and without land and then production volume, we cannot talk about enterprising. So here it's very important for us also to talk about the land bank. Current land bank model has to be really taken care of from the perspective of the access to this by women and youth, and how we can facilitate that market through the mobilization of resources, including access to finance. The last one, maybe my slides. I just wanted to give you a little bit of, this is my own collections from my own. What I would like to give you a little bit of message is that because of this COVID-19, people started home garden, especially in urban area, people started some rooftop gardening, and people started to try different recipes at their home and not going to the restaurants or the hotels. And at the same time, they were also having lots of indigenous technologies we have been doing earlier. Now they were trying to do something out of that. And there are lots of online business flourishing. As you can see that I also do lots of online shopping. So I could see there is a prospect to revive our indigenous knowledge and technology, especially on food processing part. We also have an opportunity to go for safe food and food supplies. And we also have an opportunity to engage youth in online marketing. And this is the first year I'm hearing that the Joomla apple has reached to Dharan. Because that is what I was questioning colleagues, that why it is only up to Kathmandu, not to even Chitwan. Now this year they have reached to Dharan and they had really welcomed with garland. So that's meaning this is possible only because of youth. It's only possible because of online marketing. Otherwise it would not be possible. So I just would like to give you some highlights from my own experiences. So I think maybe last slide, I have one slide more. So here I just wanted to say the first two, I don't want to give much emphasis. It's already Dr. K.C. has said. Ministry of Agriculture had already brought 5 policies, especially on the subsidy in production inputs, easy and low interest loans, technical services at the local levels, insurance for all crops, and minimum saving for the farmers. That was the 5-pronged strategy taken by ministry already. When there was a COVID impact, ministry also asked the local governments to manage purchase of the local products, be it for relief material, be it for food storage, be it for local supplies. And he also emphasized on the land consolidation for bulking production and then also for marketing. And also he also requested to have some idea on how to use the fallow lands at the local level. And if you see the plan and budget of 2021, unfortunately, I would like to say that this is not responsive to what is the opportunities we have to capture the youth's aspirations, especially for returning migrants, as well as the youths working here, and then women-led business. I'm not very optimistic with that, this budget plan and budget, because this is more or less the continuum of the last year program. But what I can say a little bit on the women and youth responsive programs, one is now there is lots of opportunity to go to green economy. Ambica madam is already here and she has already exposure into that. Dwarika is already managing some farming and then the supplies there. So I see I'm also discussing with the Asian Women Entrepreneurs Associations. They are also really thinking how to convert into the green economy from the handicrafts and certain industries they are having. So I think green economy is not only about making mashauras or the making gundrus, but it's also about the technology part. because now we have lots of issues related with the technological advancement. So we have to really bring women, especially young girls, into that part. The second I see is the local food supplies. And now also we have seen lots of online food supplies, especially who prepares local food and then supplies to different destinations within the cities. And maybe it can be continued after COVID also, that food supplies, local food supplies. Maybe it's a Newari food, Sherpa food, or Gurung food, whatever food we have, Tharo food. Maybe we can really focus on reviving the local foods, and local food based market can be one area for us to promote. And the third one is skills in entrepreneurship. As I said earlier, women women were really having problem for this, making use of the online services, not only for internal market, but also for the export markets. So I think this is also very important area we have to focus on. And the fourth one is access to finance, infrastructural development, and technology. Here, I would like to say that as Agricultural Development Bank, for example, they lend money in agriculture business, and they have 9% loan, and then 5% is borne by government, and only the entrepreneurs has to borne 4%. But the latest report I saw, and then women were not very much benefiting out of it. When I checked, what is happening is that when women goes for business ideas, and the officers there ask for how do I say, witness, male witness. They ask for male witness, or they ask for male counterpart shareholder, or they ask for something deposit collateral, which is not exactly demanded by the policy. So this really makes them hesitated to go to this kind of access, is one thing. And the other one, from the bank side, what I saw in the field is that the bank offices are opened in such a way that the farmers and the women are hesitant to enter into the banking premises. So if they are opening the bank in the field offices, and then if they want to serve the farmers and then the poor households, they have to behave accordingly, because they are in a very different form. And then even they are not going. When I talked to one of the ward chair in Sarlai, and he clearly said that we really feel fearful because the office is so clean and with the whole glasses and everything, and we really hesitate to go inside. So this is not the way to show up. This is the way we have to also open our businesses in a different manner. I think this is also a supply side area. And infrastructural development is very important, especially for grading, packaging, and then storage. This is very important, where women can have their work from home, because they can work in the rural area, semi-urban area, and they can do work for family, for the business also. And on the technology side, I would like to emphasize here, especially the local governments and the private sector, maybe they can work together, is especially promoting youth, women entrepreneurs to really come into this online business, or this online trainings, or the online inspections. So this is a very important area. I think we have to really focus on the imparting knowledge on that. And the last one I just wanted to say on the domestic and external markets is, as we have seen, a lot of issues between these supplies from one palika to another. This is the government's role, and then private sector also has to make lobby that how these domestic supplies can be facilitated. One is about tax issues, one is about transportation issues, the other one is about there's a mutual understanding between two palikas and municipalities. This is very important. And on the last one, external markets, especially the diplomatic offices, our diplomatic offices should also be engaged in the trade diplomacy, I would say, because they are not only for political purpose there. They also should be managing the political thing, at the same time managing labor issues. But there should be also like a labor attaché, they should also have a trade attaché, I would say. And because we have lots of products that has been produced by women and produced by youths and produced by locals, and there is no diplomacy that has really facilitated external markets. They are not giving any information to Nepal that this is the market we can really explore and try for this. So this is very important area. I think we have to go for high value products, low volume and high value products. I think this is all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Insights. Okay. Now moving on to our next and final speaker of the webinar, we have Ms. Ayshaine Labe from Sri Lanka, who has been appointed as the UNDP resident representative for Nepal. Prior to this appointment, Ms. Ayshaine was UNDP's deputy resident representative for the program and operations in Nepal since August 2018. She also served as UNDP's deputy resident representative in the Kingdom of Morocco as well as the Republic of Algeria. Early in her career, she served in Bangladesh as the head of the Office and Coordination and Aid Effectiveness Advisor to the UN Resident Coordinator. Before joining the UN system, she worked for both public sector, which are Ministry of Education in Sri Lanka, Faculty of Agricultural Science in Gembloux, Belgium, EU delegation in Bangladesh, and NGOs, Overseas Mission Secretariat, Helen Keller International Bangladesh, on the program management, research, analytical work related to poverty alleviation, youth entrepreneurship, food and nutrition security, and natural disaster responses. I'd like to request Ms. Ayshaine for her words.
Thank you very much, Avipsa. I told you to be short, but you didn't listen to me. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I think Rasendra is going to share my quick presentation. Just before going towards the slides, thank you very much for Ambica ji for this opportunity to share a few words. But having listened to Hari ji and also Yamuna ji, I am afraid that the presentation or the deliberations will be a bit of repetitive, and then I will try to make it a little bit perhaps more informal and getting into some of the things that I perhaps came across over the last couple of months in Nepal related to livelihood, food security, and that during the post-COVID and during and post-COVID situation. So this is a little bit of repetition, and I really apologize for that. If I go quickly to the next slide, Rasendra, I think if we start about the health first, today, I mean, we are in the post-COVID or during COVID situation. So today, as we know globally, we have something close to 32 million people infected and also close to 1 million who have lost lives. And if we come to Nepal, I think this is, I mean, as of yesterday, we have 70,000 plus who are basically positive and 459 lives that we've lost. And also we know that something close to 18,000 people in isolation and 6,000 people in quarantine. Why I mention this is it's because this is the context, and this is why we are all in this situation in lockdowns, and also why the question about agriculture, food security has come up again as not only as a challenge but also as an opportunity. Many of the people that we consulted, the UN system consulted during this lockdown, we consulted something close to 1,400 people over the last 6 months in Nepal for various work, analytic work or research work or assessments that we had been doing. Now here, most of them, as Yamuna ji rightly mentioned, and also Hari ji mentioned, reported about the hunger as a major challenge, and we'll see a little bit why, and also that how they were forced to survive with one meal. Their coping strategy was to get out of only one meal, or just reduce the number of times that they would take their food. And that was mainly sure for the women. And I think Yamuna ji again mentioned about it. So this is a little bit the situation and the context for this this presentation. If I go to the next slide, I quickly put this, but I think it was very well explained by Yamuna ji. It's about food security. It's about all people. And that is what I think in Nepal, we have a very diverse society, diverse population. So I try to capture some of my photographs and to show that this diversity, it's about all people, and it's not only about at a point of time, it's about all times, and have physical access. It's quite difficult physical access in a country like Nepal with a diverse geography. Social access, we have a diverse community again. The food, the affinity for food varies from each and everybody. Some would eat rice, some would eat dal bhat, some would eat as Yamuna ji mentioned, Newari food or indigenous food that is coming out. So it's a socially, it's quite, access has to be there, and also economically accessible, which means that the cost of the food. And food has to be sufficient, safe, and we know that how the safety matters, and in terms of food packaging, in terms of adequacy of the food, and also in terms of nutrition aspects. And food preferences, as I mentioned, that really basically meet the dietary needs. A child, older people, and a pregnant mother would need different types of food. So if we will also have to take into consideration when we speak about food security, these aspects, and also all this food for active and healthy life, when we see the kids playing and children, youth engaging, this is about the health. And this is where currently COVID and food coming together, it shows that complex nature of this food security concept. If we go to the next one, in terms of the livelihoods, if we take the livelihood as it's, I mean, different schools of thoughts are speaking different definitions and giving aspects. But if we take in this case about the capabilities or the assets or the activities required by people to live, that is coming from Chambers' definition and the concept. Or if it is taken as a broad array of activities, self-employment, informal, migrant and seasonal laborers involved activities. This is about livelihoods and basically a little slightly different from the jobs that we usually speak about. So again, if we see here Nepal being a mostly agrarian economy, that we can come back to that, we see that these capabilities, these assets and these activities that people require to have a decent life are currently affected by this COVID crisis, which was already an issue challenge before, but again, it is the case that after, during and after COVID. So if I go back now to forward to the next slide, Rasendra. I think the most recent United Nations report that came out as a food security, a status of food security, we know that overall in the world, some 2 billion people have risk to access to safe food, nutritious food, and sufficient food. This is globally. And also we know that some 750 million, or near 1/10 of everyone in the world, were exposed to severe levels of food insecurity, not having access of cannot be affordable or acceptable food. With this, the question being asked that, will we get there to the zero hunger by 2030? And the answer most certainly is no, we will not be getting into that zero hunger target by 2030. It's also researched and stated that COVID-19, and I think Hari's ji mentioned about it, some 83 to 132 million people, additional people, will be added by 2030 for the numbers. And we know that food systems employ currently some 1.2 million jobs. It gives jobs, while 3.2 million livelihoods. So if you take the informal sector, these are the numbers that are referred and mentioned as being providing income opportunities to people. And at risk, basically, that is a little bit, I mean, this is about June, July, but 451,000 people will be losing jobs, sorry, million will be losing jobs, and 1 million livelihoods. So basically, this shows that how many people involved in either food systems or in livelihoods and will be affected and also be losing the income opportunity. So here I have a couple of photographs taken during the lockdown. As you can see, some of the distributions of food, and this is about the relief rahat that happened, and people also lining up to get this relief because there were no exception. People, when they lost and they didn't know at the initial months what to do, I think we have to recognize that how the local communities, local municipalities, the provincial governments, with all the difficult circumstances, also with the lack of experience, but still came forward and trying to respond. So I think this is something that we have to all recognize. Next slide, Rasendra. So I think this was mentioned, and again, perhaps what we saw not only in Nepal, the slowing down all the agriculture cycle, slowing down the harvest, and I remember Hariji mentioning constraining the transport for food to markets. And this is where in a photo you can see that this is, I think, taken in Province 5, the innovation that came up with the agriculture ambulances, and UNDP, we were very, very pleased to be with some of those municipalities to support that transport services. So the processing plants, food markets, all closed, and also supply chain disruptions in Nepal, country like Nepal, with the landlockedness, it is extremely, it was very obvious how the supply chain so much affected the livelihoods of many, many people. And then perishable produce and dumping milk, and I think we all saw those in the newspapers and television, how food were basically wasted, which is already a lot of waste in the food, but then again during this time how it happened, and also how the struggle to access the fresh fruits and vegetables, particularly in the urban setting. So this is all of not only about the production, but also of the loss of livelihoods of millions of people in Nepal and elsewhere. Next, please. Rasendra. Yeah, so another point that I thought I would bring here is that healthy diets, it's quite unaffordable because they're unaffordable for more than 3 billion people in the world. So you can have access to diets, but then are they healthy? So it's a question that when it comes to food security, the question asking, is it healthy? Why it is unaffordable is that they're very expensive. They cost on average 5 times more than a normal diet. So again, here it's accessibility and affordability, that questions that we might need to think and reflect on when we are doing policies and strategies in our day-to-day programs, that as development practitioners. And also, unfortunately, the cost of a healthy diet exceed the international poverty line, which is 200 rupees a day, mean $1.9 a day. So if a healthy diet exceeds the 200 rupees a day threshold, then again there is a question about what does it mean to have a healthy diet for people who are in need, and the most of the population in the country. Next. So now here I come after speaking about the situation and a bit of the data, again about the migrant, because this is a concept now. I mean, all of us, we are speaking about this mobility, human mobility. And Hariji and Yamunaji both mentioned about at the beginning of the lockdown, how this affected in Nepal. And if a little bit we step back and look into the global situation, there are 200 million migrants working in over 40 countries. And they're sending remittances to their 800 million family members in more than 125 countries. So Nepali migrants who are working outside are part of these migrants, 200 million migrants working in 40 plus different countries. The remittances worldwide are expected to decrease by 20% in this year. This in Nepal, it is estimated something close to 14–15% might go up as the time passes. And also this lack of remittances translate this drop to 110 billion available resources for food and other necessities for millions of migrant families. And also, as you're very well aware of, in Nepal, remittances make up to 27% of the GDP. So again, the fiscal space and the liquidity that is available for doing programs and basically running the economy in Nepal will have some serious repercussions because of the migrants issue and also the remittances issue. Next. If I go a little bit, so now what is Nepal? When most of Hariji's and Yamunaji's references were made to WFP assessment. So UN system from the beginning had some 20–30 different analysis assessments and so forth that came out during the lockdown, because we were locked down, so we had a bit more time to do research and surveys and so forth. So according to these data, and we know in ADB and so forth, we know that in Nepal something close to 1.6 to 2 million jobs will be affected in Nepal, in both jobs either lost or the jobs that will be reduced in number of hours, so the wages. And also we know that if we look back 2 years back, we know the numbers show that something close to 900,000 Nepalis were unemployed already pre-COVID situation, and some 500,000 people were underemployed. To add to that, every year, something close to 500 youth are newly entering the labor market. And also we know that something close to 500,000 migrant workers and might be returning, and these do not include those are coming from India. So these are few numbers. And when we come to the remittances, as I said, it's and I think Yamunaji mentioned about 56%. So basically 1 out of 2 households, every household in Nepal is receiving the remittances. So now if we go to you as a group, business and professional women in Nepal, I think the MSM, we cannot not speak about the micro, small and medium enterprises, because this is where the business is happening. And basically, MSMEs in Nepal are part of 99% of the private sector. And out of that, even 97% are micro enterprises deploying only less than 9 people. So this is about basically the mass of industries or small enterprises that are absorbing these people or trying to offer something to the people who are the 1.6 to 2 million people who might be affected in the jobs. So it's not easy, in the sense also that we know in out of the 7 million employed people in Nepal, something close to 4 million people are in the informal sector. And it matters, because informal sector means that you will not have any safety nets. Any way of protecting yourselves to feed. So if we are speaking about food security, to feed, you don't have any. If you were not paid, you don't have money, and then you don't pay, you can't get meals, and then you end up selling your assets and so forth. So the vicious cycle that gets you into this kind of situation, because you are part of the informal sector, which is the largest section of Nepali society. Next, Rasendra. Okay, so I think I'll not go to the details about the Nepal Agrarian Society, because I think both my previous speakers mentioned about it. But it is important also, nevertheless, to mention about that the work that the government did here, because that is what we all observed during the lockdown, is that food aid and immediate relief and largely the food aid were brought to the people at risk. Perhaps not enough, perhaps could have done differently. But this was part of the work that the government did immediately in addition to bringing the health care. At the beginning, we hardly have any laboratory to test in Nepal. In 23rd of March, we had only 1 or 2 laboratories to test. And within this 6 months, we have now more than 45 different laboratories to get the health. So the health systems fixed. So there is enormous effort and investment happening. Even some might find it slow, but it's happening for a least developed country. I think this is quite interesting to note. And in terms of the food aid, and we know also 1.7 million people in Nepal benefited from the direct food aid. And this from Jumla Humla to Sudur Pashim, the most terai regions, to the mountains, to the hills. So this happened. Definitely there are ways to improve, but it happens. So again, I think it's extremely important to recognize that. And the budget, the recent budget, most probably that some of you got into, that it had a lot of efforts to increase certain allocations. It has the intention is the 700,000 jobs more. Now the issue is now, how do we make sure that these intentions are turned into reality? And I think this is again for organizations like ours, it would be extremely important to work hand in hand with not only the government of Nepal, but also the cooperative sector. That Nepal, we know that Nepal has some 35,000 different cooperatives and 6 point whatever million who are members of these cooperatives. So we're not starting from the scratch. So this is extremely important that we tap onto these opportunities that exist in Nepal, the will, and to transform that into a reality. So if we go to the next slide, Prasendra. Yeah, so I put here a couple of data that we got from our immediate impact assessment. For example, the dairy products, 3.3% of dairy products counts up to 3.3% of the GDP and represent 12% of the agriculture sector. Nepal produced 1.4 metric ton of milk and dairy products and 0.5 million farmers and 10,000 staff were deployed. This is an assessment that happened in May, so probably more people are affected now. Vegetables, even though we know that there a lot of import is happening in this area, but still a lot of production is happening in Nepal. 3.9 metric ton of vegetables and exported 1.23 million worth vegetables plummeted during the first 9 months. And 21,000 poultry farms. Most probably these numbers are a little bit outdated, but these are the available numbers that we have. And that we know also that 1.3 million people employed directly or indirectly in this sector. Now, if I think Yamuna ji mentioned about the tourism sector, and when we were discussing with the hoteliers and hotel associations, there are some 2,500 hotel restaurants in Kathmandu Valley and plus Pokhara and Chitwan and so forth. And 40% of this restaurant budgets are related with agriculture. These are related with the vegetables, fruits and dairy products that they consume. So the 2 million tourists that we were expecting this year, and we unfortunately could not get to go. And most of this drop of tourism is directly and indirectly linked up with agriculture and livestock and dairy and so forth, will have enormous impact on the lives of people. Next. So I also wanted to touch very quickly on children, a little bit of children, because it's when it comes to food and nutrition, whatever that we fail to do today will have an impact on our future generations. So in Nepal, some 31.5% of the children under 5 of age are in a waist are stunted. So basically not the right height for the age or the weight for the height. 12% suffered from acute malnutrition or wasting. This is UNICEF data that I'm sharing with you. And as we know that during the lockdown, there are less and less health workers to monitor the food nutritious status of the children, because the health workers are busy and occupied elsewhere. So we think that 60,000 more children could become acutely malnourished because of the indirect impact of the COVID-19. And we also know that even now some 70+% of the people continue to drink water which are contaminated. And these are a little bit of the challenges that the children have. And as Yamuna ji mentioned in her presentation, the last slide, we know that some positives are coming back, which is basically return to traditional food, which is even for children, that is starting to happen in Nepal. Next, Rasendra, and if we go to the schools, we know, because these are collateral effects of COVID, in 35,000 schools in Nepal and 2,800 higher education institutions, they're all closed right now. And this would mean that today some 8 million students from preschool to grade 12 are outside the schools and with having no access to education or minimum or limited access to the formal education. This also has an impact. If we go to the next slide, Rasendra, we can see that some 650,000 kids do not have access to the school meals that they usually had in the previous time. So again, come to the food and nutrition security here, and government and WFP together, they had been putting some efforts to distribute and deliver the foods to the kids. These are very good efforts, and most probably there are ways that here we can innovate and make sure that those girls, mostly because out of these 636,000 kids who are missing school meals, more than half of them are girls. So we know very well that if this is not going to continue, or this school meals are being missed, probably the kids will not be going to the school anymore, and then the repercussions that the years to come in terms of what is lost today and what is being missed today. So next, Rasendra. I think I did that. You can go to the next one. And so in terms of what we could basically propose, I think I've given some kind of 3 types of actions that the UN report proposes in terms of save lives and livelihoods. So food, livelihood, and nutrition assistance to vulnerable groups, that had been happening, distribution and so forth. But most probably, I think most of the details were given by the previous speakers, but it's important that we keep in mind that we still will have to give some support, direct support to the most vulnerable groups. And I think this is where Hariji mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, it's not about everybody, but among everybody, who are the most vulnerable groups. And data would help us to do it. So that means to invest a bit on data. production, marketing, and distribution of essential services. Basically, some countries have already assigned this production, marketing, and distribution as essential services, and also certain provisions in the law to protect the workers who are involved in the marketing and distribution and production services. So these are type of things that most probably the government and the provincial and local governments could look into. And I think also Hariji mentioned about the food sovereignty, food security and sovereignty and autonomy. And in terms of Nepal, early in the lockdown, when we were listening to immediately after the lockdown was declared, couple of weeks after, I remember the agriculture minister writing to all mayors and in the provincial governments. And I also saw the impact of that letter, because immediately after, in the month of June, I had been listening to some 200 plus deputy mayors, deputy ward chairs, and so forth. And everyone was speaking about becoming self-sufficient and becoming autonomous in agriculture and food production. And this would mean also the government to look into certain ways to negotiate their rights basically in the international market. So this is why the trade corridors need to be open and need to be negotiated and need to be discussed in the spirit of that global solidarity brings to respond to the needs of the people in Nepal. As I mentioned, the monitoring systems with data to measure the pandemic's unfolding effects. We saw that at the beginning, the deputy mayors were mentioning one of the challenges they had to distribute the relief items was the lack of data or the incompatibility of the data, outdated data. So here again, an opportunity, if we are to target, if we are to reach out to the most vulnerable, to have the data systems, right data systems and the evidence with us. And I think Ministry of Federal Affairs, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Home Affairs, Finance, this is a time that most probably that people, most of the government can come together and work together rather than duplicating, probably even development partners and the UN agencies, duplicating efforts to establish multiple types of data portals and so forth. So we will have to continue the relief packages. We had one-time relief package, and some provinces and local governments continue on ad hoc basis. Most probably, the government has opportunities here to look into the to make sure that there are some continuity of the relief packages for those daily wage earners that we made a reference, or to those who are working in the informal sector that had lost jobs and that no way very close in the future that will get back to the formal occupations. The second line of thinking, Rasendra, if you can pass to the next slide, is about protecting, Rasendra, protecting people. And again here about the food and social protection. And I know that there are many people who are losing the purchasing power, and also they need the community-based programs so that they have the safety nets in place. Formal safety protection, social protection systems being rare in Nepal, and only 30 to 35% are formally protected because of the employment status. It's extremely important to again here mix up and have different types of programs of cash, vouchers, community-based programs as such. So this is something that probably I know that the budget has foreseen that, but maybe in some kind of special attention might be required. Also the health and nutrition care system. So most of the time that to go side by side, the nutrition side of the dietary aspects and the community, the support to the community and the vulnerable groups in a way that their foods are not limited to staple food, but the fruits and vegetable consumption remains, and traditional food come back to the table and to the plate, so that there is this diversity, food diversity and nutrition elements are being looked into. Definitely to protect the vulnerable, and I think I developed it. And then there's to continuity of the essential services here, mostly on the senior citizens, people who have spent, who have passed certain age, who need special attention, the lactating mothers and so forth. So these groups, and I think once again, we know that some 6 million people in Nepal lack some kind of legal documentation. And although the Supreme Court made the provision, sometimes the understanding of such provisions does not necessarily give options for the people to access some relief because of the lack of legal documentation. And I think Yamuna ji mentioned about accessing financial services from banks. And again, something that mostly women, unfortunately, do not benefit of such provisions, because not only lack of documentation, but also some of the collateral that is being asked by the government or the banking systems to access to loans and soft loans and so forth. So this is something that probably we will have to do things differently and bring catered programs so that the benefits are in kind of cash or vouchers type of thing go to protect the people in a way that they do not discriminate by default the provisions that we have put in place. Next, the third one is about the sustainable future. And I think this is where I would say the most interesting part for us. And again, Yamuna ji mentioned about it at the end of her presentation about the green side of the recovery part. And this is, I think, the most interesting, important time to reconcile with the nature. And I think the pandemic is because of that reconciliation was somewhere going astray time and then. So this is a time that most probably the opportunity, and particularly a country like Nepal, to transform the systems so that they better relate to the nature and to the climate and the sustainable production and consumption patterns to integrate and to impose it sometimes by looking the political will. And I think that would have been the positive gains of this COVID crisis if we look into 2030 and 2050 targets or the engagement that Nepal took in the climate platform. And also probably to make sure that think about those who are basically already affected by the earthquake, for example, or living just downstream of the mountains, like.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Because of time limit, maybe we could just.
I can stop here and we can take back if there are questions. No problem.
It would be great if you could conclude it within some minutes.
Yeah, I think this is. I have only maybe one more slide probably,
sure,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rasendra. Next slide. Yeah, I have put here. I will share the slides, but there are a couple of recommendations that came out from these consultations we had with. I told at the beginning we listened to some thousands of people over the last 6 months, and some of the real requests I have summarized in the next 2 slides, and most of them were kind of reflected by Yamuna ji mostly, and said what are they asking for, right? That then and what is it that their expectation from people like us who are supposed to work in the development arena. So I think I will not go to detail it, but last, I think the three messages that I would like to bring here, if I may, it's an opportunity for the society to come together and to the sectors to come together, because not agriculture ministry cannot do things alone, and the cooperative ministry cannot do things alone. So it's a time for institutions to come together, and the organizations like us to come together if we are to propose something that matters. It's also extremely important and interesting time, as I said, to get to climate dimension and to get into something behavioral changes for the institutions like us and institutions like government or provincial or local governments, so that certain provisions are made for the future. Last but not least, it is also an opportunity for youth, since the youth, those returning plus the youth who are entering the job markets are looking for opportunities. Agriculture being not the one that attracts the most youth, because they find this sector being very traditional, very not being their taste. So there is a great opportunity to innovate, to make sure that the youth are engaged, and technology, as much as marketing, packaging, and type of new things to test. This is an opportunity. If private sector want to test, here is an opportunity to get more youth into the agriculture sector. So I will stop here. Avipsa.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And after your overwhelming and inspirational achievements, that was the least I could think for your introduction. Let us quickly move to the discussion session. I'll just address the questions at once so that our speakers can give the answers as well as their concluding remark at the same time. And this is because of the time limits we have. Okay, first off, we have question from Mr. Navraj Acharya. This is the question for Hari sir. As you presented, losses of vegetables and fruits was high during lockdown period, and the input supply system is still disrupted. So do you think the farmers may shift it from vegetable production to food crops to ensure their food security? And the capacity of Palika is limited in terms of the AG extension, services, and expertise. How do you address strategy to overcome this situation? Now,
Should I respond, Avipsa ji?
I will first. I'll read all the questions so that you can collectively answer all of it.
Yeah.
So this is from Ms. Santa Bascota Koirala. Every sector has been affected by COVID-19, let it be small, big, or large. Has the government planned anything to relieve these affected enterprises? This is a question to Hari sir and to everyone. Ms. Santa Bascota Koirala is the director of Kanchenjunga Tea State Center and the Research Center. She's also the secretary of the Organic Association Nepal. Next up, we have Ms. Shanta Sharma. Greetings to everyone. My question lies within the relevance of our topic. Sorry if I'm being any ignorant, but I had once been a part of food corporation. During my serving, we had also begun Stark Food Bank concept. Nonetheless, by the excess of my contacts, I asked whether there was any food separated for any crisis times, and well, it wasn't surprising that we still have about 8,000 metric tons of emergency food supply. So 8,000 tons of emergency food supply. Now I'm being too optimistic if I say that the amount of food I mentioned above is not enough to get us through this crisis times. I'm no data scientist, but looking at the statistic, can't we manage with that much food if properly distributed? And to everyone, Ms. Santa Sharma is the treasurer of BPW Nepal, and she has worked for the Food Corporation for 30 years. So yeah, these are the three questions we have, and giving some time to put the answer, we have a raised hand. So let me quickly go to that. Mr. Lakshman Gimire. Sir?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes. Yes, sir, could you make it short? Thank you.
I'm from Chiton. Miss Santa Bascota invite me. I'm like agriculture, agro entrepreneuring. I'm farming the dragon fruits farm in Chiton.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So let us go back to our speakers for the answers.
Yeah.
Starting with Hari sir, because I think he has 2 questions.
Thanks, Avipsa ji. I have 3 questions, and because I took less time, I could not cover my slides very well. I had to move very fast. Anyway, it's okay. I got a question from Navaraj ji. The 2 questions. If the vegetable farmers will move towards cereals, it will not be the case that what I know, because you see, cereals are is our traditional cropping, and it is being planted every year, and just we need some more technological backup, some new breed, some new seed, some technology, something like that. Even you might know that even in whole half a year is fallow, and in the main season rice, the land is covered with rice. So this is not the case that vegetable farmers will go to cereals. I will not think like that. But what's surprising that I am getting this time is, once the lockdown was taken that time, in early lockdown period, 1 to 2 months, there were a lot of losses of their produce, because the lockdown was so serious, so strict, that all the mobility restrictions were there, all the market were closed, and the urban people, most of the people, they moved towards their villages, and the demand in urban sector is drastically less. So those products that came at that time were damaged, and thereafter it is being settled. I was surprised in what case is, at that time a lot of youths and a lot of people were there in the village, and they were producing a lot of vegetables. And this time we were thinking that those products will again will be a bumper product will come up, and there will be the marketing problem in Nepal, that we were discussing in the ministry. But luckily those products got market. Those products got market in even in the Kathmandu, in Kalimati, the large wholesale market in Nepal. The products coming from India, the volume is drastically reduced compared to pre-lockdown period. So those products got market in different places, and those people who were growing vegetables, they got market afterwards. In the first beginning, they got those time that trouble. So they will the cereal is a tradition and it is going on, but the vegetable growers who usually grow to sell for commercial production, they will not revert to cereal crop because of this high value commodity also, and they are they may go to another high value crop or another agri business, but I don't think they will go back to the cereals again. That is my feeling. And about the local municipality that I talked in my second last slide, that this constitution is giving the opportunity to the local governments that the whole agriculture system, the service delivery, all those things are within their right. So we have a lot of programs and projects that are supporting local governments. because we are giving conditional budget to local governments. We are providing additional manpower in local governments, and we are now the new projects are coming up to support local governments in case of their infrastructure, in case of their institution building, in case of their manpower development, in case of their all capacity development. So we are yet in this time in the ministry have no confusion that local governments are the key drivers of the agriculture sector for food and nutrition security. So those local governments should be empowered, should be in the driving seat for the coming days. We are very much clear on that, and we have planned some budget and program in this way. Regarding relief package, Shantaji, that for agriculture only, there is no special relief package that we have announced. But in this year, fiscal year, the new budget, it has given some provision of interest subsidies or soft loans or some other things that are given in general, not specific to agriculture, and no any specific program to recovery of these losses or recovery of these enterprises, especially in agriculture, has not been announced. And this may be, I think, because of some financial shortage in the federal government also, that I can assume. Regarding the food storage, yes, there is a provision of food stock and food storage in this food company, but still, yes, we are importing country, and a lot of food, especially rice, is being imported. There is less stock in the storage. That is true. But as I presented in my deliberation also, that we were assuming that the import of this food will be the problem, and there will be shortage of the food in the market. But still, till now, it is not the case. Even in India, we are mostly importing from India. The food production is not reduced, and we are getting easily the food that we are trying to import. And yes, the finally, I would say that the youth, as Ayshaine has mentioned clearly, that agriculture is not the most attractive business to the youth. So it has to be more technology-led, more mechanized, or more youth friendly. It has to be made so that they will be retained there. We were not expecting many. I think huge number of youths will retain in the agriculture sector, but still those who wish to retain, who wish to come in the agriculture sector, they are being facilitated in the loan process. They are being facilitated in the consolidating land, in some sort of incubation. They are being promoted for the technology assets or something like that. And we have the whole government has given importance of the employment generation in this fiscal year. So agriculture will be one of the sector. Of course, they wish to come and to go ahead. I remain here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Moving on to Ms. Yamuna. Would you like to add something to this? And I'd like to request to add your closing statement as well.
Thank you, Avipsa ji. There is no particular question to me, but what I could see in the chat box, that one is about food bank, the other one is about facilitation of international markets, especially for the provisions for facilitation of markets. So that's what I said in my presentation also. It's a bit of a continuum, but a little bit of a demand to responsive additional activities. But if you see, there is a plan for 200 food banks in the local levels, 300 local land banks at the local levels, and then the organic production and youth and women-led enterprising, agriculture and forestry-based enterprising, and mobilization of youths in the enterprising sectors. So this is very important areas. But as I said, this has been very much isolated. The program run by Ministry of Women, Children and Senior Citizens, they have women empowerment and enterprising related program. Ministry of Land managing cooperatives and land issues, Ministry of Agriculture looking in agriculture, and overall Ministry of local governments are really, honestly speaking, in my discussions with the local governments, from their own revenue, from their own total budget, they are spending at least 30–40% budget in agriculture, but they don't have neither the human resources nor the technical guidance on how to really make use of those resources. And Ministry of Finance also has sent a guideline to make use of gender responsive guidelines, but there is no
Ma'am?
the schedule says it has given the mandate to local government, but there is no capacity. So it's more about the capacity and institutional arrangement than the policy provisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Finally, to our third speaker, Ms. Ayshaine, would you like to add? And please.
I think, thank you so much. And I think the colleague said everything, but it's an opportunity. I think the crisis comes with an opportunity, and it's the same for agriculture and food security and livelihoods. The take maximum advantage of Nepal's nature-based opportunities, and that whatever the recovery is based on the nature and circular side of the nature, and that this recovery is efficient. And again, here it's a question about utilizing different skill sets, technology, and make sure that the economy works, but in a fair way. And also for the private sector and others to come in as a group and work together, and particularly think about a fair economy and fair society that the crisis is giving, to transform those priorities, the policies or the instruments or the incentives that we are giving to something that is fair, so that everybody can be happy, at least from here to a couple of months and years, because we're going through a difficult time. But let's expect that this time is utilized to invest in thinking and also making something concrete for the youth and future generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A quick questions to the speakers from Ms. Sylvia, because I have no idea on this. I was very pleased to be able to attend the session. Some of the facts and statistics were staggering. Is there to be any publication of this? So to any speakers, if we could have any publication. She is the international member of BPW.
If I may, a couple of all the different assessments that the UN system has a list of publications that which happened during the lockdown and during the pandemic, and we can share with you and Ambica ji, so that all the access can happen from UN side. Thank you.
That would be great.
And the data that some of these slides that the graphs I had taken from WFP this study, that was the quick survey that WFP, FAO, and Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development have jointly assessed, and it was I think it is there in the website of WFP. I think WFP Nepal. In FAO I have not checked, and this is recently finalized, so we have not uploaded in our website, but I think it is there in the WFP website. It is already finalized. And another one coming up is a a study, a bit a mega study has is being conducted by National Planning Commission on overall impact of COVID-19 in Nepalese context. Agriculture is one of the sector there, and it will cover many other sectors. And they are, I think, finalizing the report, and a very good report on this impact of COVID-19 is coming up very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've already exceeded our time, but maybe hoping to conclude the session in within 7 minutes. A quick question, or I don't know, from Dr. Bina Pradhan, the advisor of BPW Nepal. Ma'am, please, if you could make it very short, as we've already exceeded time.
Okay, thank you, Avipsa. Thank you, BPW, for organizing this very important. I think the issue is very, very important. And all the speakers, Hariji, Yamunaji, and Ayshaine, it was really an excellent presentation and a lot of information, and the issue that came out very well. And I have only one. It's really not a question to anybody. Just my immediate reaction is, how do we really, one thing is, how do you, government is doing all this and there are certain steps being taken, but then, the enormity of the problem is so much that every household, every person is affected. So I'm thinking of, households, from the previous experiences, whether it is conflict or whether it is earthquake time, it is really the people who they themselves have defended themselves. And that is more important than what the donors or what the government has given, actually, and to reach the people who really need it. I think so, I think UNDP had organized a similar kind of webinar some time ago. And one idea that, I really would like to present is that, every household, every individual is affected, and household is an important unit. So can we not see household as an enterprise? They are producing the food, they are producing the, handicrafts, all that you need is being produced. People, they are sending out people to earn money. Now there's a tremendous loss of income of so many people. So how are we going to cope up? Do we have the institutional mechanism to cope up with this? So I think something that is already there, which is a household where, and it has proven, and you have seen during the conflict as well as in the earthquake time, that these are the units that have really survived and gone through the process. And I think this is also one, household, because they have been cultivating all kinds of food grains, from the vegetables to food grains to all kinds of productions, agro and forest-based production. So can we not see them as enterprises, and the way that we can really, really putting the purchasing power in the hands of the people? I think this is something that we really need to think about, because institutionally, it's very difficult to reach each people. So I think households, and it is the women who, as Yamuna has already shown, the impact is more on the women. So can we not think about households and then putting the purchasing part, economic incentive to the household for the growth of, supplying inputs and all that can come from the institutions, but really for the action. I think that's where the youth is, that's where the vulnerable people are. I think so. This is this one thing I wanted to just put through. Thank you so much for all your presentation. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Let us move forward, and I'd like to request the President of BPW Nepal, Ms. Ambica Shrestha, for her vote of thanks. Ma'am, you need to unmute yourself. You're muted.
Unmute. Unmute yourself. Unmute.
No, if somebody, some administrator can unmute her and it will be okay because she, I don't know.
Yeah, now I
Okay.
think I've got it. I've got it now. Okay, I've got it, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. That is great to have you all. It's great for BPW Nepal that all of you have taken so much interest. I must say thank you very, very much to all of you who have come, especially our speakers. The speakers like our, and there's somebody at the background, Dr. Bahadur K.C. from the Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you so much for all your presentation and all the points that you have given. And it has been very, very good for us to work on that. And I think it's given everybody an idea of how it is going on and what is there for everybody. Also from Yamuna ji, it's great that you have worked so hard and done all this and given all your inputs into how all this, the thing about, you talked about how to reduce and how to do these things. So these are, I'm not going to go into each point because it's going to take a lot of time, because what you've done, you've explained and everybody's been talking about it. And I think Beena ji has also said something about it. So thank you all. The other is from Asani. Thank you, Asani, for giving us the time. I know you are not in Nepal, but even you're outside on a holiday, you've taken us and given us the time to speak to us. It's so important, really, to all of us, all the three speakers. It's very, very important that you've spoken to us, especially on this issue. And we've been talking about livelihood. And why we've kept on livelihood is if you want the food security, if you want people to get into income, as Beena ji says, it's the household. And so we need to know about what is happening in the food sector, what is going on where, and how things can be done. Each one of you have given us charts, you've given us all the ideas of all the things that have been going on and what can be done. And as Asani said, these problems are there, but problems bring you also opportunities. And I think that is what we should be taking into account, that there are opportunities which we should grab, and especially to our women leaders and women in the country. It is very important that we, the women, start working on this and working on how we can develop. As Beena, you said about the households, it is so important, and that's the way, if we can get at the households and get them to do the work as before, only encourage them and see their difficulties. Yamuna ji talked about the domestic problems that has been happening at homes here, especially during this time, and the loss of income, and how the woman who was doing some earning is losing, and that makes it more difficult for her. So these are things that we should really seriously look into and see how we can work on that and help them. What we need to see is that every person gets a livelihood. We talked about green. I'm so happy about the people talking about greening. We need the greening, and I think Nepalis, we should go back into what our ancestors did, because they lived properly, they did. We of course need more technology, the modern ways, but the system that they had in agriculture, they had all organic, and it grew well, and it was good for everybody. And the food that they ate, which we now talk about as this fast food and these fancy food, more than anything, I think for the Nepalis, it's needed that we go back to our old system and our old food. Because if you look at it, our old system talked about health. We talk about, now they are talking about how important this, what is it called? Garlic and ginger, as well as turmeric. I heard we used to use turmeric everywhere. We and Nepalis and I think and the Indians also use turmeric in every food. And if you cook a curry, it's turmeric. If you put something, now that is affecting been helping us in our food system. So we have forgotten. We have gone into the modern things. Let us revive. And as Ayshaine said about reviving, as Yamuna ji said about getting back the old system of the old food of us, the Nawari food, the Sherpa food, this food, that food. And if you remember the food system that we had in the mountains, the corn, dhero, in the European way, you can call it polenta, special way, polenta. But for us, it's dhero. But that is one of the most sustainable things for the health. The soya bean, a household in the mountains was their breakfast and their lunch was just corn and soya beans. So that was healthy for them. So this is what I think we should revive. We're talking about children. I have worked with children and we have worked at the local food and we have given them local food, the 5 grains, which is locally available, which is so easy for a person to make at home. And that helps a child to grow. And we have seen the growth and we've seen the development. So these are things I think that we should revive. And together with that, we should revive get the new system, the new technology, and we're talking about all this. So that is the other part that I would like to make. The other thing is that we talked about all these technology. We've been a lot of things that Dr. Hari gave us about technology, about all that. That is so necessary for agriculture. We talk about agriculture and we talk about this, the land pooling, the land that we have seen, we read in the newspaper about people who've come back and people who have been in the political thing also, going into farming and doing very well. And that I think is what we need. We should be self-sufficient, sustainable, as you've been talking about, self-sustaining. And that is one thing very much. The other is greening. And that is also inclusive, as you said, and also resilient. People are resilient, but we should be more resilient. The other important thing that I think we've been talking about is skill training, which is so important. Training in reviving enterprises. And we talked about community food bank, agriculture, innovations, etc. So all these things that I think we should really focus on. And today, we really need to give the idea to our people that there is an opportunity, and that opportunity is producing food items, which can be sold, which can be used. The other thing I would like to say is when Dr. Hari talked about how food production was done and they had to destroy it, I think it's our time now to help them to dry the food, to make it so that that can be, instead of throwing the tomatoes into a dump, into dumping, that they are taught to dry it, to preserve it, and that could be sold for them. That means that there is a market for that. So as you said, as all of you said, that innovations, imagination, and that this COVID, though it is one of the most something that nobody has ever faced, and I think all around the world, everybody's facing, we are all suffering, everybody has lost things. And as somebody said just now, of course, tourism is the one which is, Hariji said, tourism is the one that has faced the most difficulties, and it's facing. And because of tourism, there is a loss of market, vegetable market, the agriculture market, all that, meats, etc. So that is the loss. So there we need to work and see how we can do it. So I have to say thank you all for joining in and doing this. And I'd like to thank my international member, Sylvia. Thank you for joining in. Giuseppina from Italy, and I don't know who else. I haven't seen the others, but I see that I'm very grateful that you've taken part and you've taken the interest. And to Sylvia, we will see that you get some information that you require. we'll see that we send it to you. And to the others, like I'm so happy that somebody who works on the green Kanchenjunga tea estate, very, very good that you all are here. You work with organic, and that is wonderful that you're doing organic and you're interested in this and greening, and also you're interested in agriculture, and more than that, being business and professional women. I would like to say that we help women to become earners, to go back again to do earning, and more women to earn, so that they can live and they can have the family will be much better. That just now the domestic violence, the loss of food, the loss of thing, all that will be compensated slowly by these resilient women working. So thank you so much. And everybody, my BPW members, all those who are here, my executive, everyone, thank you. And thank you for being so patient and staying so long. Thank you for giving us the time. We are so grateful. We'll go back to you. Dr. Hari will come to you regarding the agriculture and all the thing that can be taken and given to women. To Yamuna ji, of course, we have to work together. I would really love to sit together with you and work on this and see how we can develop more. Asani, of course. We'd like you to have a good holiday and come back to Nepal and be with us again and be the live wire again here working with us and with everybody in Nepal. Thank you so much. I have to thank Avisha. Thank you for being the moderator, and thank you for doing all this work from us. To everybody, thank you. Have a very good, I know it's a Saturday, it's a weekend, but you've given us the time. Thank you. And I hope we'll be able to utilize it, and that we will be able to take it as an opportunity of all what you've talked to us about and go ahead. And that is what I would like to request all my friends and members from all over. Let us take this as an opportunity and work. Thank you. And namaste.
Namaskar,
So much.
Thank you.
With this, we've come to the end of our webinar. I hope today's webinar has given us all some insights and questions to think about. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our guest speakers for their time, insights, and words. And everyone present here for your time and contribution. BPW Nepal for giving me this opportunity. Thank you all, and hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, Doctor. And thank you, Yamuna and Asani. Thank you for speaking. Thank you. I see so many. Trivuban Poril-ji, I see. Lakshman Gimire-ji. Right. Good. Thank you. And thank you, Abhisha. And thank you, Veera. Okay.